welcome back to Bengal Bites, a podcast about the Cincinnati Bengals from an honest, realistic perspective. I'm your host, Derrick. This is episode 115. This is the Week 13 preview episode. This is the game the Cincinnati Bengals are going to play the Baltimore Ravens on Thanksgiving night on NBC with Mike Tirico and not Chris Collinsworth because he does not work on Thanksgiving. It's going to be Jason Garrett and Melissa Stark, I think, is the other one who does the sideline reporting. Maybe they'll have two on the sideline. It doesn't matter. The point is, the Bengals are playing the Ravens in primetime on the road, which Zach Taylor is going to complain about and say, why do we always have to play in Baltimore on Thursday night in primetime or whatever? But they're playing on Thanksgiving, and that's a treat in itself. But also, star quarterback Joe Burrow is officially activated off injured reserve, and he is 100% playing in this game. All systems go for Joe Burrow's return, and I am still not 100% sure that he should play in this game because it doesn't seem like he's 100% healthy, but we'll get to that. In this episode, we're going to talk about a few things that were of note, of interest to me as a Bengals fan, notably the press conferences for Joe Burrow and star wide receiver Jamar Chase, who's going to be coming back from his one-game suspension. We'll talk about what they said in the press conference or didn't say. We'll also talk about this Ravens team, some of the injuries that are going to be a factor in the game, and I'll give a prediction at the end, maybe. We'll see how it goes. But let's get into this right away. The biggest thing, obviously, everybody is paying attention to nationally is Joe Burrow is coming back. He had hinted a few weeks ago when the reporters asked him, is that something you had in mind for a comeback? He said yes. He, thought about it for a second and said, yeah, it would be a big deal because in the press conference, I'm sure if you're a big Bengals fan, you've seen it either on Bengals YouTube or X or on one of the other various outlets. But Joe Burrow was back in front of the camera, in front of the microphone, and he was giving his typical thoughtful answers. We got so used to Joe Flacco, and he's a much different personality than Joe Burrow, but equally interesting. But now Joe Flacco has faded into the ether. He's still going to be the backup quarterback. He has jumped Jake Browning at this point. Nobody wants Jake Browning to play. They released Sean Clifford, but nobody claimed him off of waivers, so he's coming back as the practice squad quarterback. But Joe Burrow, he's back, and they asked him if he is 100% healthy at this point. And he kind of danced around, and he said he's as healthy as he needs to be to play and win the football game for the team. Like, he didn't say, yes, I'm 100%. He said, I'm healthy enough. And you would say that nobody in the NFL in Week 13 is going to be 100% healthy. Everybody is playing a violent physical sport, and you're going to have injuries that accumulate over the course of the season. Not all of them are going to cause you to miss whatever it's been, like 10 weeks of post-surgery and rehab and all this stuff that Joe Burrow's had to go through. And I am not a doctor. I will admit I don't know what the typical recommended amount of time to recover from toe ligament surgery typically is before you go back into the thing that caused you to tear said ligaments in said toe. But if I think about it, Joe Burrow is well aware of the risk. He has even said he understands why people are concerned for him, but he is, he's aware that injury is just part of the sport, and he's been injured a lot, and he's tried to do everything he can to not be injured, but here he is again, and the only thing he can really do is come back as soon as possible. And he acknowledged the fact that he gets paid lots of money to play this sport, and he doesn't feel that it would be right of him to stand on the sidelines and collect the checks that he's been collecting every week, which, by the way, is like multiple millions of dollars. I think his base salary is over $40 million, so he's got to be making like $2-3 million a week to just stand there in sweatpants and his aloe cut designer shoes. So he comes from a modest upbringing. I'm sure, for everybody else, that's like we would go retire off of 1 week of Joe Burrow's salary, but he feels maybe responsibility to his teammates, to his coaches, to whoever to try to come back. Obviously, I don't want him to get hurt. That's the one thing that I'm just going to be holding my breath, hoping that doesn't happen. And injuries can happen at any moment, but it just seems like there's been so many with Joe Burrow. Don't want to see it again. Luckily, you could say they're going to be playing on grass in Baltimore. The M&T Bank Stadium is, according to Derrick Henry, one of the best grass fields in the NFL. The only issue is it's going to be pretty cold. The cold weather has hit the East Coast of the United States at the current Thanksgiving holiday, and it's supposed to be about mid-30s in Baltimore with 8 to 9 mile an hour winds. That's the last time I checked. But it's going to feel like close to freezing, especially towards the end of the game. Sun's been down for at least like 5 or 6 hours at that point. And what's the first place on your body that gets cold when you're out in the cold weather? Of course, it's your feet. So that's going to be something to just keep track of. How does Joe Burrow keep his feet warm, that blood flowing through those toes that he's going to be concerned about? He's going to wear some kind of protective shoe to give it support and make sure that it doesn't get hyperextended again, I'm sure. But Joe Burrow has always been so, I don't want to say reliant on his mobility, but that's been part of his arsenal. That's been one of the things that made him so special, was being that slippery, elusive guy who could just pull a Houdini. They called him Joe Houdini when he was breaking out of all those sacks. Even though he took a lot of sacks, he was also eluding the other guys with that mobility. And now, not that he can't escape, but will there be something in the back of his mind, kind of like when he had that calf injury? Do I really want to take off and test it if I have to scramble outside the pocket and try to pick up a first down or whatever happened? So you never know what the situation is going to be, what the situation is going to call for. You look around the league, you see lots of people putting their bodies on the line. I saw Dak Prescott doing like a somersault into the end zone to score and come back for the Cowboys. And is Joe Burrow going to be willing to do that type of stuff after this toe injury? We'll see. Joe Burrow is crazy, so I'm not going to put anything past him, but he's been off for so long. You could argue he might be rusty, or he might be even rustier if he took the rest of this year off, because we saw what happened with Deshaun Watson for the Browns. He missed an entire season because of that whole massage scandal thing that happened. When he came back, he wasn't anything like the player that he had been before he got traded, which is kind of weird. Like, it all fell apart for him, and he's never been able to get back to that same standard. It's been weird. So Joe Burrow, like he said, he's a football player. He wants to play football. It doesn't feel right for him to say that he's healthy but then not play. But I would argue he's probably not healthy. If he thinks that he's healthy after not even 3 months, he may be a little bit, like I said, he may be a little bit crazy, but it's up to him. Obviously, Zach Taylor wants him to play because I don't think Zach Taylor's job is on the line, but he has to at least pretend like it is. So he'll come out and I've heard him say this like 5 times by now. He says, "My favorite thing in the whole world is to watch Joe Burrow play football, and so I want him to see him out there like everybody else, I think he just wants to see Joe Burrow out there because hopefully they give the team the best chance to win. I mean, Baltimore is a formidable opponent, and It's going to be a tough place to win on a short week. Joe Burrow hasn't been playing, but all the rest of his teammates just played last Sunday, just like the Ravens did. Both of these teams are coming off a short week. They're not going to have as much time to recover and prepare for each other. This is a divisional game, big game for everybody. The Ravens are coming in on a 5-game winning streak. They're at 6-5 and tied with the Steelers for the top of the AFC North. They want to keep that winning streak going and make sure they stay in the playoff hunt. The Bengals are pretty much out of it. They're not, they're not technically eliminated. They don't have the X next to their name yet, but it's getting dark early, as they'd say. They've lost 4 games in a row. They've lost 8 out of their last 9 games, and the offense hasn't necessarily been the problem. It's been mostly the defense. So Joe Burrow wouldn't have necessarily won that many more games. They might have won 1 or 2 more of those games, and maybe they'd be 4-7. Maybe you could squint and say 5-6, but they still have a losing record, Joe Burrow or not. But this is one of those games that you can kind of throw the records out because it's a divisional rival. These two teams have a history going back years. Players don't like each other. The teams don't like each other. The fan bases don't like each other. And playing on Thanksgiving night when everybody is going to be with their families, all the teams around the NFL are going to be off. They're not going to be doing anything, so everybody around the league is going to be watching this. All the other games are going to be over. And if you're still awake at this point, you're going to be watching this Bengals-Ravens game. So as a player, as a professional athlete, a performer, this is one of those situations Zach Taylor would call a great opportunity to show what we're all about and all that kind of stuff. One of the other storylines that's going to be big is the addition of Jamar Chase, but then the subtraction of T. Higgins from the lineup. Jamar Chase had that 1-game suspension last week for spitting. We'll get into that press conference he gave and the apology that he kind of gave. But we know that T. Higgins is going to be missing because he had that concussion hitting the back of his head on the artificial turf at Paycor Stadium. I don't know. I think they may have had a little bit more success with T. Higgins in and Jamar Chase out versus the other way around. But obviously it would be much better to have both T. Higgins and Jamar Chase for the return of Joe Burrow. Jamar Chase last season had 21 catches for over 460 yards and 5 touchdowns, which is incredible in only 2 games. So the Ravens are going to be well aware of him. One old familiar foe on the Ravens is Chidobe Awuzie. He is one of the starting, or he's listed as a starting cornerback for the Ravens. And so he is well aware of what Jamar Chase likes to do. Cheeto is starting opposite of Nate Wiggins. And Nate Wiggins is one of the most athletic defensive back in the NFL right now. Maybe even better than Christian Gonzalez for the Patriots. They're different style of players. But I would say Nate Wiggins might be even a little bit more of a difficult matchup, especially for Jamar Chase. You'll know Nate Wiggins because he's the guy with 2 mouth guards on his face mask, kind of like the George Pickens when he was playing with the Steelers in the 2 colors. Nate Wiggins does the 2 mouth guards, which is good because Jamar Chase is known for ripping people's mouth guards off of their face mask. So Nate Wiggins is going to have a backup just in case Jamar Chase gets grabby. But speaking of Jamar, let's get to this. So if you don't know, Jamar Chase is my favorite player on the Bengals. I love everything about Jamar's confidence and his attitude up until the last couple weeks. I obviously don't condone spitting on people, and then I double don't condone lying multiple times and saying that you didn't spit on someone when we all saw it on video. I don't know Jamar Chase personally. Obviously, we don't hang out together. I've never met him. I don't know anything about him. But that whole thing, I've never spit in anyone's face that I can recall. Not on purpose. I mean, sometimes say it, don't spray it, it happens. But it wasn't like an intentional spit in the other person's face. Anyway, Jamar Chase, last episode, I said I was disappointed that he had not come out and taken any kind of accountability or apologized at all. I said, he's got Instagram. Why doesn't he go on there? Like, hours after I posted the podcast, Jamar Chase issues Instagram apology for spitting. And take it from me, as someone who uses ChatGPT and AI on a regular basis, I can say that this apology that was posted on Jamar Chase's Instagram account, not only was it not written by him, it sounded like it was written by a lawyer, PR, marketing, whatever, like damage control kind of, that's what they do as their job, but also sounded like it was written by AI, ChatGPT. But it 0% chance that it was written by Jamar Chase. And I could get that just from reading the word. All the words were great. They sounded great. He was apologizing to the fans, to the Bengals, to the Steelers, to the coaches, to his teammates, apologizing to everybody, saying he crossed the line, it was disrespectful, blah, 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 blah. Everything sounded very good. It just didn't sound anything like Jamar Chase, because I've listened to every Jamar Chase press conference and interview that he's given, and just knowing his vocabulary, the way that he speaks, this statement did not have any of the words that Jamar Chase would use. So he's not going to suddenly just all of a sudden turn into like a, Oxford level thespian and have all the, thespian is not the right word, but you know what I'm getting at. Scribe, maybe. The point is, I'm not saying, I think Jamar Chase is a very intelligent person, but he's not necessarily like a master of the English language, is my point. So it didn't sound anything like him. Okay, I figure probably his agent said, in the interest of being able to continue to be marketable to fans, young kids everywhere who are thinking about asking their parents for a jersey for Christmas, our parents going to be really eager to go out and buy the jersey of a guy who's spitting in people's faces. He needs to kind of do some kind of mea culpa on that from a business perspective. It's going to not only make him lose respect within the court of public opinion, but also it's going to make him lose out on business opportunities. He's a young guy. He's not thinking that way yet. He's signed his big contract in the offseason, so he's probably feeling a little bit too full of himself at this point. Like he's untouchable. He's young. He thinks he's never going to die, all that stuff. So it was jarring. The next day, yesterday, Jamar gave a press conference right after Joe Burrow. And since Jamar Chase had been suspended, they haven't got a chance to talk to him. He didn't give any interviews in the locker room. Not that he has to. And Jamar is a unique player in that he gives press conferences. The Bengals don't make their players that available compared to other teams. When I look at other teams' YouTube channels, their official videos, they've got like 10 or 15 of their players giving interviews every week. The Bengals only put like the starting quarterback and the head coach, and that's it. So it's out of the ordinary for one of the other players like Jamar Chase to have a weekly press conference. But since he is such a huge superstar, he gets special treatment. They asked him what did he want to say about the statement that he had released previously. Did he want to expand on it? And just reading Jamar's body language, forgetting about what he said, his body language was very like distant, like just kind of eyes down, head down, not really looking out. Maybe, I don't know if he felt ashamed, embarrassed, didn't want to answer these type of questions. He was kind of on the playing defense. So I get it was an uncomfortable type of situation, but he didn't really come out and own the statement. He didn't come out and really back up any of the words that were in the statement that he gave. And so they were kind of trying to prod him. What did he think? How did he feel? Whatever. They asked him, how come you didn't say anything about Jalen Ramsey, the guy that you spit on? Because he didn't apologize to him. It was kind of like reminiscent of when Logan Wilson got traded to the Cowboys. He thanked everybody in Cincinnati, all of his coaches, all of his teammates, all the people of Cincinnati, everybody except for Zach Taylor specifically. And so people took that as kind of a side swipe that Logan Wilson was upset at Zach Taylor. Similarly, Ja'Marr Chase never apologized specifically to Jalen Ramsey in this whole statement. So people were asking, did he have anything? Did he have any communications with Jalen Ramsey? And Ja'Marr Chase said, well, no, because I don't have any way to get in contact with him. Which, again, is a lie, because everybody knows Jalen Ramsey could be reachable if Ja'Marr wanted to. He just hasn't taken any initiative and doesn't want to. And so it's like, again, a lie. So this time, I can't remember what the order of the questions to Ja'Marr was, but nobody ever came out and asked Ja'Marr about the lying and saying that he did not ever spit in anybody's face. He said it multiple times. Nobody ever came out and asked him what was up with the lying to us in our faces. But they asked him, like, what did he most regret about the situation? Kind of danced around the topic. But he never went there, and he went the opposite direction. He said, which is a huge pet peeve of mine, he said, I could care less what people think. I could care less about this and that. And it was very dismissive, not very apologetic at all. And by the way, it should be, I could not care less. I've probably said this before, but if you could care less, that means you have more than zero amount of care that you could care less. So if you could not care less, it would be impossible to care any less. You get where I'm going with this. Anyway, Ja'Marr Chase basically said he didn't care. How about that? He didn't care what anybody thinks, doesn't care because he's got kids, he's got people to take care of. He's just a football player, and nobody's going to stop him from doing what he does. And didn't sound like he really was very contrite or regretful or worried about really any of the situation. Hopefully he's right and we'll all forget about this. But the best way for people to forget about situations like this is to score touchdowns. And that's one of the things Ja'Marr hasn't done a lot of this season. He's only got 5 touchdowns. His numbers are down a little bit. Now, obviously, that's going to be partly due to the fact that Joe Burrow got injured. He was catching passes from Jake Browning and Joe Flacco. And for whatever reason, T. Higgins has continued to score lots of touchdowns, but Ja'Marr Chase hasn't been able to get in the end zone. So he said that he doesn't have any extra motivation or anything extra proved to anybody because of this whole situation. Hopefully he's right. I mean, at this point in the season, nobody's really thinking about the fact that Jalen Carter spit on Dak Prescott. So it's probably all going to blow over, but it's kind of left me a little bit sour. Like, I have a Ja'Marr Chase jersey in my closet. Am I going to feel good wearing that out in public? If he scores, 4 touchdowns or something and they actually go to the playoffs, yeah. But if he continues to be like lying to the media and spitting on people and not being, really that much of a leader, I might have to keep that Ja'Marr Chase jersey in the closet. I mean, I have 2 jerseys. I have 2 Bengals jerseys. I got Ja'Marr Chase and I got Giovanni Bernard. Gio was an upstanding guy. I got it because, he was like a role model, pillar of the community, doing everything the right way. Gio would never let me down like this. Gio would never spit in somebody's face and then lie about it. So I might have to break out the number 25 old school jersey from now on if I go out in public. But I would never wear a Bengals jersey out in public, let's be honest. I'm a grown man. I can't be doing that. Jamar Chase probably doesn't care what I know. Well, I take the back. I know Jamar Chase doesn't care what I think. And he's probably laughing at me the fact that I have his jersey as a grown man. But this is the hobby that I have chosen. I've been a fan of the Bengals for so many years. I love this team. I love watching them. But the thing that I always say about this podcast when I open this show is this is a podcast about the Cincinnati Bengals. It's not a podcast for the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm going to try to give you my honest opinion. So a lot of people are just like backing up Jamar Chase no matter what and saying like we should all just forgive him immediately. But I don't know. I'm a human being. If I take myself out of the Cincinnati Bengals fandom homerism, just as a human being, I can say Jamar Chase is being dishonest and I don't like it. The same way I didn't like Aaron Rodgers with the whole being immunized, but I'm not actually vaccinated for the whole, that was just a weird situation that didn't make Aaron Rodgers look good. Obviously different circumstances for Jamar Chase here, but it's never good when you get caught in the lie and then you don't really have anything to come back with. So hopefully that's not an issue going forward and we can all forget about it. But the Ravens defense is going to be all over Jamar Chase, and I'm sure they're not going to let him forget about it. They're going to do everything they can to get in his mind, to try to set him off. Obviously, he's shown that he can step over the line, let people get under his skin, and so the Ravens are going to be all over him. Like I said, Cheeto knows ways to get in Jamar Chase's mind, perhaps. He has a little bit of backstory or whatever he could use against Jamar or tell other people to talk about Jamar. I don't know. But there's going to be trash talk, a certain amount of trash talk, not only because they're divisional rivals, but it might help them. Now, Ravens defensively, they don't have a ton of pass rushers. They've got Kyle Van Noy, Travis Jones, Mike Green, Brent Urban, John Jenkins at nose tackle, and one of the players who's not going to be playing in this game, Taven Bryan. That name might sound familiar because he was on the Bengals for a couple weeks. I think he was in training camp or the end of training camp last season, but he was the player who his wife was upset because something about there was a misunderstanding with Bengals security and whether she could come into the stadium. There's a whole issue, and then the Bengals didn't have any kind of family room, and she just felt mistreated by the Bengals, and she made a post about it on social media. So that had a lot of fans like turning against him as a player. Like, how could your wife say anything negative about the team that I like, even though it's the truth? I want to stick my head in the sand. But he is out, so he won't be able to get any kind of revenge on his old team. But they're going against one of the best linebackers in the league, Roquan Smith, number 0. And I think Kyle Hamilton, their starting safety, he is going to play in this game. He kind of twisted his ankle in last Sunday's game against the Jets, but he's going to be able to go. Marlon Humphrey, number 44, he's the other cornerback you need to watch out for because he is good at stripping the ball out of the ball carrier's hands, getting interceptions and fumbles, and he made a huge play in the Jets game last week where he stripped the ball out of Breece Hall's hands at about the 3-yard line as the Jets were going in to score, totally flipped the entire outcome of the game when it looked like the Jets may have had a chance to keep the game close. Marlon Humphrey made a huge play. On the Ravens on offense, obviously they've got Lamar Jackson, but he hasn't quite looked the same as he has in years past, mostly because he's been dealing with multiple lower body injuries. He's been dealing with a pulled hamstring. They kept him out multiple weeks. They had Cooper Rush, and then they moved to Tyler Huntley and started winning. But Lamar's got a knee injury, a toe injury. I think he might also have an ankle, but he's got like at least 3 or 4 different injuries. And he obviously has not been as much of a running threat because of that. There was, especially early in the Jets game, he had more than ample opportunity to take off and run, but he was more satisfied to just stay back and pass. And he didn't look like the typical Lamar Jackson. He's still playing relatively well. His statistics are pretty good, and the Ravens are winning. That's the one thing that he said is it doesn't really matter how healthy he is and how he feels. Winning is the only thing that matters, and they've been doing that. They're on a 5-game win streak, so I guess it's working. But given the fact that Lamar didn't look 100% on Sunday, coming off that short week coming into Thursday, he's probably not going to look suddenly 100%. I would expect a little bit of a limited Lamar Jackson going up against the Bengals defense. That means I wouldn't be surprised if we see a lot of Derrick Henry, the running back, who is moving up the ranks of the all-time. He's got over 12,000 career rushing yards, and he is a big bruising running back. Keaton Mitchell is his backup, and it's going to be a tough task for this Bengals defense. The linebackers like Barrett Carter, he gets outweighed by at least 30 or 40 pounds by Derrick Henry. So we might see some wicked stiff arms against these Bengals linebackers. Demetrius Knight better get strapped up. Dax Hill. Geno Stone going up against his old team. He was drafted by the Ravens, I think in the 7th round. Geno Stone got picked by them and led the NFL in interceptions 2 years ago with the Ravens. That was when Kyle Hamilton was second or first year player. The Bengals defense is going to have a tough time with not only Derrick Henry, but also the tight ends Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely. Bengals are the absolute worst team in the NFL at covering tight ends. They have, I think it's like 15 or 16 touchdowns given up to tight ends, a crazy amount of yards and catches. Every game we've seen like Pat Freiermuth going crazy. Sam Laporta was going crazy for the Lions. I could just like name a team and think of their tight end, and they probably have a huge game against the Bengals. Mason Taylor for the Jets. I'm just thinking about all these tight ends. Colston Loveland for the Bears. Oh my God, just all the memories, all the tight ends. I'm not even thinking about all the games that they've played, but I would not be surprised if the Ravens tight ends are a big part of their game plan. Charlie Kolar is their third tight end, and then they also have fullback Patrick Ricard, who can catch passes out of the backfield. He's not a huge receiving threat. He's like a big Drew Sample, I would say. But the Ravens' offensive line is pretty massive, especially their right guard, Daniel Falele, 6'8", 370. And the Bengals' defense has been doing better at stopping the run, but throughout the course of the season, they have not played very well against the run at all. Bengals are not going to have Trey Hendrickson again in this game, but they should have Cam Sample back, so that might help a little bit on the defensive line. Bengals are also going to have running back Samaje Perine most likely in this game. He's been dealing with that high ankle sprain that he suffered, but he's missed the last 1 or 2 games. He should be back for this one. I think it was a bye week and then a game for Samaje Perine, but he's back. But then Taj Brooks, the rookie 6th-round pick running back, is going to be out with a concussion. They said Taj Brooks suffered a concussion during a kick return, but Taj Brooks also took a hard hit on a blitzing linebacker from the Patriots last week. Robert Spillane came in on the middle linebacker blitz and had a huge impact on Taj Brooks. It was a good job of blitz pickup, but that's one of the risks of stepping in there as a running back. You can get your head taken off. Also not going to be playing in this game is Jermaine Burton. He's got some kind of an ankle injury he popped up with late in the week, and all of a sudden he's not going to be playing. So it's going to be more Charlie Jones, Mitch Tinsley, Andre Yosivach, Jamar Chase. And they do have Mike Gesicki back for this game. So Noah Fant is the other receiving option for the Bengals. But it is really remarkable that Jermaine Burton has not been active throughout the season. But let's get to the predictions already. We've been talking about this game. It's probably going to be a relatively close game. Right now, I think the Ravens are 7-point favorites, but I could see the Bengals keeping it closer than that. Some of these Thursday night games can be high scoring. I wouldn't be surprised if it was, but just watching this Ravens offense, they haven't been really firing on all cylinders. Mark Andrews has been dropping some passes. They haven't been connecting with DeAndre Hopkins down the field very much. Zay Flowers hasn't been able to get loose on any explosive plays. And hopefully this isn't the get-right game. A lot of teams saw the Bengals as the get-right game for their offenses, like the Jets, who couldn't do anything until they played the Bengals, and all of a sudden it was an offensive explosion. But maybe the Bengals can continue their uptrend defensively. Al Golden, maybe he'll be able to get some more blitzes, put some pressure on Lamar Jackson. But probably the thing that's going to make the difference, be the decider in this one, is going to be the turnovers, as usual. If one team can get an interception, force a fumble, especially if they can get a pick six, or maybe even a special teams score. And that's one thing I forgot to mention. This is going to be the battle of the two top gross punters in the NFL right now. Ryan Rico leads the league in yards punting average gross. Number 2 is the Ravens punter, Jordan Stout. But Jordan Stout leads the NFL in net. Ryan Rico is like number 8 in net. Part of that is to do with the fact that Ryan Rico, the Bengals punter, has 9 touchbacks, tied for the most in the NFL. So kicking the ball too far into the end zone, not giving the chance to the teammates to go down and cover it. And the Bengals have some good special teamers. I'm thinking about Tyson Anderson, PJ Jules, those backup safeties. They are making contributions on special teams and doing a good job of going down there. So like guys like backup linebackers like Joe Giles Harris and some of those other guys are making good tackles in the punts and the kickoff games. Evan McPherson made that 63-yard field goal last week, and we can expect him to be pretty much automatic. I can't remember the last time Evan missed a kick. It's been a while. He's been making most of his kicks recently. Actually, I do remember. It was that one that came up super short from 54 yards because they had the wrong ball out there. That's the thing that's crazy. He missed one from 54 short because they had the quarterback ball, but he made it from 63 because they had the rubbed up kicker's ball. So apparently it does make that much of a difference. I think it's all mental though, man. You just got to kick that thing. But given the cold weather and the wind and all that stuff, I think the Ravens are probably going to get out to an early lead and then just try to grind out clock, like play the ball possession game, play keep away from the Bengals offense, and just run the clock out. They'll probably have like a 10-point lead or something, and the Bengals will find a way to keep it close, keep it within one score. But if I had to guess, I'd say the Ravens win 27-21. They win by 6. It's a little bit uncomfortable, but they find a way to pull it out at the end. Bengals are disappointed going home on the flight back, and they have to get ready for the Bills on the upcoming week with a 3-9 record. And even at 3-9, they'll somehow won't be eliminated yet. So this isn't, you could say it's not a must-win game yet. It's not must-win. They're only 3-8 right now. But obviously you need to start winning some games just to keep more fans interested. A lot of fans, once they hear like 9 losses, they're going to just do something else. I'm going to be here for the rest of these games. It doesn't matter if they win or lose to me. I'm watching all of them, even if they had Jake Browning. That's the thing, is even if they put Jake Browning in at quarterback, I would still watch all the games. It doesn't matter to me if Joe Burrow is playing or not. I'm going to watch either way. I would prefer Joe Burrow be out there, but if he wasn't out there, I would still watch anyway. So, whatever. You know, the Bengals, they want to win every game. They tried the whole Joe Flacco experiment. It kind of worked. They didn't win that many games. They won one game, which maybe Jake Browning could have also won one of those games, but his confidence was so shot. They had to put something else out there, or fans were just going to revolt. Hopefully, the rest of this season, even if they don't make it into the playoffs, if it's just a healthy Joe Burrow where he looks like Joe Burrow from last season, throwing touchdown passes to T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, and they score lots of points, and win or lose, it's still an entertaining game, then I guess this was all worth it. But knock on wood, hopefully this doesn't happen. If Joe Burrow gets injured again, it's going to be really devastating. And we'll have to just chalk it up to the cost of doing business. But for all these guys' sake, I want them all to stay healthy. Not just Joe Burrow, but especially Joe Burrow needs to stay healthy. So tell me what you think. Am I way off? Am I crazy with any of these takes? I hope not. I hope I'm realistic and just being honest. But that's the thing about this podcast is I don't have to serve any sponsors or anything like that. So I can just say what I actually think and not what I think other people will want to hear, which most people probably don't want to hear that I think the Bengals are going to lose, but I'm just trying to keep it real with you. So let me know in the comments. You can hit me up, email bengalbitespodcast@gmail.com. And yeah, we'll be back after the game to break it all down. We could be breaking down a Bengals win. We'll see. Hopefully it is at least entertaining. And maybe a couple touchdowns to Jamar Chase. That would make me feel better, you know? So until the next episode, I'm going to leave you with a hooday and stay hungry for more Bengal Bites.